June 27, 1944, St. Lo sector, Normandy, 6:41 a.m. A thin veil of morning fog clings to the broken farmlands, drifting between shattered hedgerows and smoking craters. The air carries the heavy scent of wet hay, diesel exhaust, and gunpowder hanging low over the Normandy fields. A single church bell, its bronze body cracked from artillery shrapnel, clangs once in the distance, a hollow metallic groan that echoes like a warning no one can fully understand. Inside a concrete grain silo that has not held a single kernel since the first days of the invasion, Corporal Daniel Whitford lies motionless. He is 31 hours into this hide, and the concrete beneath him has molded itself to his shape like a second skin. The darkness around him feels alive, breathing with the warmth of the sunrise, shifting with every subtle change in wind. Only a thin blade of light enters through the crack he carved into the wall the night before, a slit so narrow that anyone passing outside would mistake it for old farm damage. Through that slit, he watches the world in fragments. A hedge here, a stone wall there. The faint movement of a gray uniform disappearing behind a destroyed barn. Then stillness. And then always the smell. This time it comes without warning. Freshly disturbed soil drifting on the faint east wind. That smell never lies. It means movement. It means men are repositioning. It means officers are digging new command posts. He recognizes it instantly. If you love stories like this, real courage, real history, then don't just watch, become part of it. Subscribe now to WW2 Frontline Legends and stand with the people who keep this history alive. He keeps his cheek against the worn stock of his Springfield rifle, allowing only his eyes to shift. His pulse stays steady, lower than most men at rest. Farmers learned heart control long before soldiers did. Patience was not taught in any sniper manual. The farm had shaped that into him long before the army noticed. Outside, bootsteps crunch through wet grass. He hears for men. The cadence is wrong for Americans. Too deliberate, too even. Germans. A patrol. Close. The concrete shell of the silo amplifies every sound, turning whispers into vibrations against the back of his neck. He does not blink. The patrol stops right beside the base of the silo. One soldier's rifle taps the concrete with a careless knock. Another mutters something about useless farm towers. Their voices echo upward through the interior, bouncing around Daniel's ribs like trapped insects. They do not know he is inside. They believe the silo is empty. Every German patrol has believed that. Even American officers barely glance at these structures. Silos represent farm life, not warfare. And that assumption has already cost German command 17 officers in 5 days. But Daniel doesn't count it as 17. He counts it as 17 opportunities reclaimed. 17 corrections to the battlefield. The patrol lingers. One soldier strikes a match, lights a cigarette, and leans casually against the ladder. Sparks fall onto the concrete. Daniel waits. Stillness is survival. Stillness is the only reason he is alive. Eventually, the cigarettes burn to the filters. The soldiers drift away, speaking in soft laughter, mocking the fields they occupy and the people who once worked them. Their footsteps fade. Daniel lets out one careful breath, so controlled it barely moves the dust beneath his lips. He resets his position. The ache in his knees radiates all the way up to his spine. His shoulders throb. The bucket in the corner smells of old rations and worse. He ignores all of it. Pain is temporary. Exposure is fatal. Outside, dawn sharpens the outlines of the hedgerows. Through his narrow slit, he sees a young German lieutenant step out of a ditch, binoculars raised, scanning American positions. The officer believes the morning light gives him an advantage. He does not know he has already been seen. Daniel adjusts his elevation. Wind, steady from the east. Temperature, rising. Humidity, low. Angle, steep. He inhales, exhales halfway. Stops. The rifle cracks. Thunder trapped inside concrete. The lieutenant drops instantly, collapsing into the hedgerow without a sound. Kill number 18. He does not smile. He does not whisper triumph. Instead, something else catches his eye. Something higher. Something distant. A flash of reflected sunlight. Not from the fallen officer. Not from German field equipment. No, this reflection is different. Narrow, precise, deliberate, a scope. But from where? 2 miles north, above a slanted barn roof. A faint glimmer dances again. A rifle lens? Another sniper? But the angle is wrong for German fire, unless they've repositioned into new elevated posts. Or it could be something far more unsettling. Someone else is using a silo. Someone who has chosen the shadows the way Daniel did. Someone who also knows these fields. Someone he did not detect. He pushes the thought away, but it clings to his nerves like cold mist. Focus wins battles. Curiosity gets men killed. That is a rule older than war itself. He returns to his scope and the shifting chaos outside. German officers rush between stone walls, shouting orders, pointing at maps. Another captain moves toward a trench line. Urgency in every step. The pattern is familiar now. One death unravels their structure. One shot ripples through the chain of command. Daniel waits for the wind to soften. Just a whisper. It does. The captain sprints. Daniel fires. The man falls mid-stride, rolling hard onto the dirt. The command post he was racing toward goes silent. Kill 19. But the echo of the shot is wrong. Sharper. Hollow. It vibrates through the silo's interior like a warning. And Daniel knows instantly that something is different. Something above him. Something inside. Metal scrapes metal. The hatch at the top of the silo shifts. A bolt slides. Someone is climbing the exterior ladder. Daniel freezes. There's no angle to fire upward without the muzzle blast deafening him or worse. He moves against the wall, disappearing into shadow. Breath held until his vision blurs. The boots reach the top. Pause. Shift weight. Groan. The hatch lifts 1 inch, just enough to reveal a shadowed helmet and shoulders. German muttering drifts downward, irritated and dismissive. Something about checking pipes. Something about old farm junk. The soldier is annoyed he had to climb this far. Daniel stays still. The hatch opens another inch. Daniel prepares to fire, muzzle raised toward the ceiling. But then, the soldier lets out a mocking laugh. He taps the hatch once with his boot and mutters, "Empty," then closes it, climbs back down. For 30 full seconds, Daniel becomes part of the concrete, unable to breathe, unable to blink, unable to even think. He survived by a margin so thin it almost breaks his nerves. But just as the relief begins to settle, a faint metallic click echoes from within the silo itself. Not above the hatch. Inside. Behind him. He turns his eyes upward, and in the thin, gray light slanting through the ventilation slots, he sees it. A silhouette, curled into a recessed ledge 30 feet above him. Unmoving. Silent. Hidden. Not German. Not American. Not familiar. A presence that has been inside the silo longer than he realized. A presence that has been watching him, learning from him, waiting for something unknown. If that person wanted him dead, he would already be dead. The truth hits him harder than recoil. He is not the only ghost in these fields. And whatever lurks above him may not be fighting on any side but its own. The mystery grows like a cold weight in his spine, but he forces the fear down. Because outside the concrete shell, German command is collapsing one officer at a time, and the Americans are pushing harder every hour. Daniel adjusts his rifle, pushes the dread deeper into the dark corners of his mind, and prepares for the next kill. Because until he knows what hides in the rafters above him, silence is the only weapon he can trust. If you're watching this on WW2 Frontline Legends, tell us where in the world you're watching from. And make sure to subscribe so you never miss the untold stories of World War II. The silence inside the silo becomes a living thing, thick, watchful, stretching across every inch of the concrete chamber. Daniel keeps his breathing shallow, each inhale a measured thread of air. The shadow above him does not move. It hangs against the curvature of the wall like a stain left by war itself, impossible to interpret and even more impossible to ignore. But the battlefield outside does not wait for answers. By 8:15 a.m., German officers begin emerging again, each movement carrying the tension of disrupted command. Daniel returns to the narrow firing slit, eyes steady, hands firm despite the cold drill of uncertainty creeping through his spine. He locks onto an Oberfeldwebel crouched behind a half-collapsed stone fence. The man checks his watch, speaks into a field radio, then signals toward a mortar team half hidden behind a stack of hay bales. Daniel exhales. The shot rings out inside the silo like a thunderclap trapped in a tomb. The German non-commissioned officer slumps forward, the radio handset dropping from his hand. The mortar crew freezes, unsure where the shot came from, panic spreading through their ranks. Kill 20. Outside, confusion spirals outward like a broken gear. Officers hesitate. Runners duck instead of sprint. Radio transmissions grow frantic. A lieutenant shouts at two soldiers to move left. Both scramble right. For a moment, the carefully arranged structure of German defense seems to sag under the weight of invisible pressure. Daniel does not dwell on the immediate victory. His attention flicks upward again, toward the recessed ledge above him. The shape remains motionless, a darker silhouette within the dim interior. A man could not lie still that long without preparation. A sniper could, but why hide above another sniper? Why mirror his movements? Why reveal a scope flash from another distant structure unless intentionally? He forces himself to ignore it. Focus is survival. By mid-morning, German activity changes tempo. Patrols fan out through hedgerows. Pairs break off into trios. A squad of 6 moves toward the farmhouse Daniel has kept under observation since dawn. Officers stay indoors now, appearing only in brief flashes between walls. Each movement guarded, clipped, afraid. The silence between those sightings becomes an enemy of its own. Daniel's mind strains against the lack of sound from a ledge above him. Not a breath, not a shift of weight, not even a heartbeat against the concrete. The stillness is too perfect, just as his own once was. A question claws its way into his thoughts. How many shots has that unseen sniper taken? And at whom? He forces the question away. The next opportunity appears at 10:42 a.m. A captain moves briskly between a stable and a lean-to shack, holding a leather map case under one arm. He pauses at the corner of the shack, checks the sky for aircraft, then steps into the open. Daniel adjusts for wind, stronger now, pushing west. The shot requires compensation. He calculates it instinctively, something between farm logic and battlefield precision. He presses the trigger. The captain drops instantly. Kill 21. German forces respond with frantic aggression. Machine guns open fire at random angles, sweeping hedges and empty fields. A mortar round arcs overhead and explodes 50 yards from Daniel's silo. The concussion rattles dust loose from the interior walls, drifting in small spirals toward the base. For the first time, Daniel wonders whether the Germans are starting to suspect the silos. But their patterns still say otherwise. They search houses, barns, and church steeples. A patrol lingers at the foot of the silo ladder nearby, looking upward, but quickly dismissing it. To them, it is simply a remnant of farm life, irrelevant, inconvenient, hardly worth the effort. A blessing built on ignorance. Yet the shadow above Daniel remains unmoving, untouched by the shock waves of mortar fire, undisturbed by dust or fear. The stillness is unnatural now, unsettling. Whoever occupies that ledge understands silence at a level even Daniel does not. The afternoon drags forward. Heat builds inside the concrete cylinder, thickening the air until it clings to the skin like damp wool. Daniel feels sweat bead at the base of his neck. He adjusts his position only when necessary, his joints protesting with every shift. Hunger gnaws at him, but he ignores it. The bucket in the corner stinks, but he has learned to treat that as part of the environment. At 12:57 p.m., a runner appears, sprinting from a damaged cottage with a folded message in his hand. He stops, hands trembling as he reads something to a senior lieutenant. The lieutenant barks orders toward 2 squads waiting in cover. They begin rallying for a reposition attempt. Daniel steadies his rifle. The lieutenant exposes himself for only a moment, long enough to wave the squads forward. The moment is all Daniel needs. The shot cracks. The lieutenant collapses, hands clutching at his chest. Soldiers scatter in confusion, shouting over one another, dropping to the ground as they search for a threat they cannot see. Kill 22. Daniel shifts slightly to reduce strain on his right knee. The movement triggers a faint rustle in the dust above his head. His pulse spikes. He glances upward. The silhouette is gone. He feels the cold crawl of adrenaline in his throat. The ledge above him is empty. The shape that once blended seamlessly into shadow now leaves only the vague imprint of its presence, an absence more terrifying than its appearance. He sweeps the interior with his eyes, every muscle taut. Nothing moves. No new shadows. No soft breathing. No shifting of weight. But whoever was there has slipped silently into another part of the silo, or left the structure entirely. He does not know which possibility is more dangerous. Outside, a German major emerges from the back of a barn, flanked by two sergeants. They move with a sense of urgent purpose, trying to restore order. Daniel sees the major point toward an artillery position, gesturing sharply as smoke billows behind him. Daniel returns to the rifle. The major moves into the open. One breath in, half breath out. The shot echoes. The major folds sideways, collapsing into the mud. Kill 23. German soldiers break formation. Panic spreads like a ripple across the field. Officers hesitate to expose themselves. Communication phrase. Junior ranks begin acting independently, afraid to linger in the open long enough for orders. Daniel shifts his gaze again, searching instinctively for the shadow that once occupied the ledge. It is nowhere, no trace. Whoever it was moved with a silence as precise as his own. The silo holds its secrets tightly, and the air thickens with questions Daniel cannot answer. At 3:12 p.m., the battlefield shifts. German artillery begins firing shorter bursts, erratic and uncoordinated. Two squads attempt an assault on the American left flank, but the attack collapses as their command element hesitates. Confusion becomes paralysis. Daniel watches each faltering movement with the detached focus of someone who has seen the tide turn on patience alone. By late afternoon, the Germans attempt one final effort to regain control. A staff captain emerges from a dugout, maps tucked under his arm, shouting to regroup. Daniel tracks him calmly, adjusting for the afternoon wind. The rifle cracks. The staff captain hits the ground, maps spilling into the dust. Kill 24. The battlefield breaks. Officers refuse to stand in open terrain. Sergeants shout contradictory orders. Units drift backward, unsure whether to hold positions or retreat. The rhythm of German defense collapses entirely. Daniel senses the victory beginning to form, but the chill of uncertainty remains. Whoever shared the silo with him has not revealed themselves. Not a sound, not a hint of motive, not even a trace of entry or exit. The unknown sniper, if that is truly what the silhouette was, has become a presence without boundaries. A ghost matching his silence with perfect intention. As dusk approaches, German activity quiets to scattered movement and exhausted shouts. Daniel studies each fading shadow, each retreating figure, measuring the effect of silence on an army unraveling at its core. Inside the silo, the darkness deepens. The heat dissipates. The concrete cools beneath him, drawing the warmth from his limbs. Daniel drinks sparingly from his canteen, chews a ration bar slowly, and settles in for another night inside the confinement of concrete walls that have become both refuge and prison. The silence returns fully, swallowing the exterior battlefield, stretching into every corner of the silo's curved interior. It wraps around him, familiar and foreign at the same time. But tonight, it carries a new weight, the unmistakable impression that he is being watched, even when no figure occupies the ledge above. Somewhere in the darkness of Normandy, someone else has chosen these forgotten structures. Someone else is studying the battlefield. Someone else is shaping the war through patience and elevation. And Daniel understands a chilling truth. If this other presence is an ally, the battlefield has gained a second unseen force. If it is not, then every moment of quiet could be the last he does not hear coming. The night settles over the silo. The wind softens against the concrete curves. The fields grow still. Daniel Whitford lies awake, rifle across his chest, eyes open to the darkness. He has become the ghost of the St. Lo sector. But tonight, he wonders if he is the only one. Night settles over the St. Lo fields like a lid closing on a simmering pot. The battlefield outside falls into a muted hum, sporadic rifle cracks, distant artillery thumps, the occasional shout carried faintly across the hedgerows. Inside the silo, the darkness becomes almost absolute, swallowing all shapes and corners until Daniel can barely distinguish the curve of the wall from the air itself. He lies still, blankets wrapped around his shoulders, rifle across his chest. Every muscle aches from 2 days of rigid silence. The humidity settles into his joints. The concrete floor steals the warmth from his bones. But he does not sleep. His mind stays fixed on the presence that once lingered above him, the silhouette that vanished without a trace. Hours pass. No movement, no breath, no shadow shifting in the upper recesses. Only the slow cooling of concrete. By 4:31 a.m., the darkness begins to thin. Dawn leaks into the ventilation slots, offering the faintest suggestion of shape and color. Daniel rises into position, joints protesting as he crawls toward the firing slit. His hands tremble not from fear, but from stiffness. He steadies them against the sandbag platform. Outside, the German lines appear subdued. Movement is cautious, hesitant. Officers stay hidden. Runners move in bursts from cover to cover. Daniel senses the fear settling into them, the uncertainty growing like mold in damp corners. Yesterday's kills have hollowed out their command structure. He watches through the rifle scope, waiting for the first officer to break cover. At 5:17 a.m., a senior lieutenant emerges from a stone farmhouse, scanning the fields. He carries a field map under his arm, his cap pressed low over his brow. He believes the early morning haze offers protection. Daniel steadies the rifle. Wind mild, temperature cool, angle manageable. One breath in, half breath out. Trigger press. The lieutenant falls before his feet complete the next step. Kill 25. Shouts erupt. Soldiers duck. A sergeant pulls the lieutenant's body behind cover and glances toward the American lines, scanning for muzzle flashes that do not exist. Daniel tracks the panic, but shifts his attention elsewhere. The presence from the previous day still lingers in his thoughts. He scans the upper ledge, the shadowy interior, then returns to the narrow slit. At 6:02 a.m., a German hauptmann steps onto a raised mound near a half-destroyed wagon, shouting orders and waving his men into new positions. His voice carries authority, cutting through the confusion. Daniel observes him for nearly a full minute, waiting for the right moment. When the hauptmann pauses to lift his binoculars, Daniel inhales. The rifle roars. The German officer drops. Kill 26. Inside the silo, dust swirls downward, settling over Daniel's blankets and gear. He wipes the scope with a gloved thumb. His hands are steady now, controlled. The rhythm of this hunt is familiar again, and each shot sharpens the collapse of German command. At 7:23 a.m., a third officer appears, a captain carrying a field radio handset and muttering into it with frantic urgency. He steps into a narrow lane between walls. One breath, one press, one body falling. Kill 27. German forces unravel further. Units withdraw from exposed areas. Orders fail to reach their intended targets. Panic takes the place of discipline. Every surviving officer now moves like prey, watching the sky, the ground, the hedges, but never the silos. Never the silos. Daniel shifts slightly, stretching cramped muscles, his eyes drifting toward the upper recess again. Nothing moves. Nothing breathes. The figure, if it ever existed, has left no trace. Daniel wonders whether exhaustion or fear conjured the vision, but the memory of that silhouette refuses to fade. The presence was real. He felt it. He knew it. And it was still out there somewhere. By late morning, German positions near St. Lo begin to crumble entirely. Soldiers abandon forward trenches. Radio transmissions stall. Junior ranks assume control without guidance. Daniel watches the disarray spreading like a cracked foundation, each break widening the collapse. His rifle rests on the sandbag cradle once more when the opportunity for the 28th kill arrives. A major, tall, decorated stoic, steps from a command dugout, flanked by 2 junior sergeants. He carries a folder under one arm, likely containing the last coherent orders for this sector. He is careful, cautious, alert. But he is still exposed. Daniel is already lined up, already adjusting for the subtle wind change, already breathing in. The shot splits the morning air. The major collapses as if his strings have been cut. Kill 28. The sergeants scramble, dragging the body behind cover. Their shouts carry desperation, fear, disbelief. One gestures wildly toward the barn roofs, the steeple, the distant ridge, everywhere except the silo towering silently behind them. German command fractures completely. The Americans advance that afternoon, pushing through hedgerows with renewed momentum. Without officers, German squads fold quickly. Some retreat, others surrender. Some scatter into the low woods, hoping to regroup, but finding no direction. Daniel remains inside the silo through all of it, watching, listening, waiting. He only moves when the fields fall quiet, when the German lines buckle and the Americans begin sweeping through the area. When he finally climbs down the ladder later that evening, the ladder creaks under his weight. His movements are slow, deliberate, shaped by fatigue. He touches the ground and feels the damp soil beneath his boots, the same soil that betrayed German movements 2 days earlier. He looks back at the silo, silent, still, empty. But the upper recess, where the presence once lingered, remains dark and impossible to explain. Hours later, he returns to the American command post, where supply officers and medics greet him with disbelief. He has been reported missing twice. Rumors swirl among the ranks about a ghost sniper who has been killing officers with impossible precision. Daniel says nothing. He files his rifle, wipes it down with oiled cloth, and sets it against a crate. He does not explain where he has been. He does not mention a presence inside the silo. He does not talk about the other glint of glass 2 miles north. Some mysteries are not meant to be solved in war. Some ghosts choose their own battles. Some snipers prefer silence to recognition. In the days that follow, other American marksmen begin adopting Daniel's method. Whispered conversations between snipers at night. Notes exchanged quietly over ration tins. Men raised on farms or ranches understand the logic immediately. Within 2 weeks, a dozen snipers operate from silos. Within a month, nearly half of the rural-raised marksmen use them as prime hides. By autumn, the tactic spreads across France, Belgium, and into Germany. Somewhere along that spread, Daniel stops being the only ghost in the fields. German documents later reference unknown elevated snipers using farm structures, unable to pinpoint where the shots were coming from. Their search patterns never include silos. The farm structures remain invisible. Daniel survives the war. He returns to Kansas in 1945 with calloused hands and a silence he carries like a shadow. He rebuilds a family farm, marries a schoolteacher, raises children who know him as patient, quiet, steady. He keeps no medals on display, leaves no journals behind, tells no one about the 28 officers he killed, and certainly never speaks of the presence sharing the silo with him. In 1989, when a historian visits him to discuss rural sniping innovations, Daniel listens politely, then smiles faintly. He says only one thing before returning to his chores. Silos are the only place a man can sit still long enough to think straight. He dies in 1996, leaving behind a legacy whispered among military historians, studied quietly by marksmen, respected secretly by soldiers who understand that genius sometimes comes from the forgotten corners of rural life. And the mystery of the second sniper, the presence above him, remains unsolved. Some ghosts, it seems, were never meant to reveal themselves. Some shadows stay part of the war, forever. If you've enjoyed this powerful, untold story on WW2 Frontline Legends, please share this video so more people can discover it. Don't forget to like the story if it pulled you into the battlefield, and comment where in the world you're watching from. I love hearing from every corner of the globe. And most importantly, hit that subscribe button so you never miss another forgotten World War II legend brought back to life. More incredible stories are waiting for you.